My literal earliest childhood memories of being locked in a steamer trunk, sometimes 4 or 5 days at a time. My parents wouldn't feed me, they wouldn't give me water, and I would literally come out covered in my own urine and my own feces. I was dying in a pool of my own blood when God sent a prostitute to save my life and get me to the hospital and get me stitched up. When she came and rescued me, I suddenly realized that God knew I was alive.
I had been held in what's called the MDC, which is the Metropolitan Detention Center, where rats and rodents, they just crawl all over you. It's a horrible place. But they had put me in a lockdown portion where you're only out for an hour a day and you're locked down for 23 hours. Guys, Mark here, back at Shapiro TV, and we are here. Off camera is Chris's partner, Nate, and we are here with Chris Levin, okay? And Chris is gonna answer anything I ask him, but Chris is a very successful real estate developer. He's a successful operator, and he also is very successful at making people's lives better through his mentorship program. But we're not really gonna talk about all these things. We're going to talk about Chris's journey, because we all have a story, we all have a journey, but Chris's journey is going to have you on the edge of your seat. And I'm going to turn it over to Chris. I'm going to let Chris just freestyle, talk about whatever he wants. He was just telling us about why he is so successful with multiple women. I'm only messing with his wife. No, I'm not doing that. But it's an innate quiet confidence, and that quiet confidence will make you better looking, taller, smarter, more charming. And guys, Chris, give us your number one craziest story in your life. I hope it's the one that you told me about. So
wow, first of all, thank you for having me and allowing us to come down and be part of what you're doing here. That's absolutely awesome. Man, I'm trying to remember where you want me to start.
Wherever you
all right,
want.
So listen, one thing that I need to lay out, that anything I talk about, anything that I do, anything that happens in my life is for one reason: it's to glorify God. Because on my own, I wasn't making it. On my own, it just didn't work for me, and I like to always share hope. And one of the biggest parts of that story is where I started. I like to share, and it's painful to share it, but I like to share the very fact that I came from a horrible beginning. My literal earliest childhood memories are of being locked in a steamer trunk as a very young child, 2, 3, 4 years old, and I'd be locked in there for sometimes 4 or 5 days at a time. My parents wouldn't feed me, they wouldn't give me water, and I would literally come out covered in my own urine and my own feces. And my mother diaper trained me, or potty trained me, by sticking a crap full diaper in my face and making me stand in the corner for what may have been minutes, felt like hours as a very young child. And that's not the worst part, right? I've been shot, I've been stabbed, I've been sexually molested. All of that stuff is true, but still the least negatively impactful part of my story. Because the reality is where I come from is the programming that I was given at a very early age. My mother used to tell me she wished she had the abortion, she wished I was dead, she wishes I was never going to be anything, I was a piece of crap, nobody's ever going to love me, I'm never going to amount to anything. That's the stuff that I had to overcome. She taught me to not touch a hot stove by pouring a pot of boiling water down my back. And it's funny, you were talking about the guy in the tattoo chair. So I have my whole back is tattooed to cover the scars. That's where I started. And that's the life that I knew. I grew up in housing projects. I grew up idolizing the guys on the corner with the money. I grew up in a lot of abuse and a lot of pain. That's the jumping off point of my life. And literally, by the time I was 14 years old, I had been beaten for so long by so many people that one day I just snapped. the last memory I have of that day is my stepfather is standing on my back with my head in the cellar door, and he's slamming the door on my head and telling me he's going to kill me. And in that moment, I snapped. And you can only beat a dog for so long. I jumped up and I beat the crap out of this guy. I put him out through a second-story window. And my mother, I'll never forget, I got him on the ground, and my mother went and got the next-door neighbor. And this guy came and put a gun to the back of my head. And my mother in that moment threw me away like a piece of trash. Told me I had to go, and he was more important than me. And that's where my story began.
Wow. Sitting here, I can feel the waves of pain.
Listen, Mark.
And I'm very rarely speechless, and you know I've been through my life battles.
Yeah.
It's nothing compared to that.
Let me, like, I share that darkness, right? And I share that darkness for only one reason, because there is somebody listening right now that needs to hear that and to see what the result can be, right? That, just because that chapter was written, it's not the final chapter. And I know one thing, God's not done with me yet. But listen, there was a lot of dark stuff in my life, and I going through that stuff, and a lot of pain and all of that. But as I sit here today, I consider all of that a blessing. And I know that sounds insane, and there's been a lot of dark twists beyond that in my life. I don't know if God thinks I can carry the world on my shoulders, but everything that I've been through, every experience, I like to think hasn't happened to me. I think it's happened for me. Because listen, there are people that by me talking openly about being sexually abused as a child, there is somebody that's got that darkness inside of them as a result of the things that were done to them, that makes them feel or think that they're less than. And I'm here to tell you, the truth is God loves you just as much as he loves me. So you're not less than, you're not responsible for that. But I share that, and it's now become a tool, an ability for me to reach and touch people's lives that other people can't touch because they haven't walked in that path. If you've walked in that path, you can share your experience. Not only can I share the experience of the pain, but I can share the experience of the hope. See, that defined me for a long period of time. That programming defined me for a long period of time. But at some point, you have to switch your perspective. For me, it was an intervention from God that literally told me that he did exist, and he did love me, and there was a purpose for me. And in that moment, the shift in that perspective made me understand that God wasn't done with me, and that I could use everything that ever happened to me for a positive, right? It's all to glorify something that God can do that I can't, because as a human being, I'm going to fall short constantly. And that moment, that white light, it wasn't a white light, that moment of clarity is the best that I can say. I was literally living behind a dumpster. I had just been stabbed, and I was dying in a pool of my own blood when God sent a prostitute to save my life and get me to the hospital and get me stitched up. For some reason, when she came and rescued me, I suddenly realized that God knew I was alive. See, all my life, I believe that deep down inside, every human being has got an innate or a basic understanding of God, and that God exists. And a lot of times we cover that up with drugs, alcohol, lifestyle, whatever, just lies we tell ourselves. But we all know about our own conscience, right? Our conscience tells us not to do things, and we just don't listen to it and go do what we want to do. So I knew there was a God, but I didn't know God knew there was a me. And in that moment when I was rescued by Paulina, she got me in the hospital and lied, said she was my mom, and she got me stitched up and saved, and saved physically. And from there, my journey began, because I knew that there was a different life out there. That little glimmer, that little spotlight. And I got choked up with gratitude. I'm sorry. You don't understand the pain that you go through coming through that, and then finally suddenly realize that there's hope for your life. God took me off the path of destruction and showed me somebody and something in a prostitute first, right? Kindness and the love of the world in a prostitute. And then from there, other men that he's put in my life that have helped me go through. I had a mentor very, very early on, and this guy, he didn't have a lot, but what he did have is he had faith. And he was crippled, man. He was handicapped. He was crippled with arthritis. But this guy, I was 18 years old maybe, and he was maybe 80. And this was the first man that looked at me and told me to shut up. Sit down, shut up, and listen. Stop talking. You don't have the answers. And so God put these people in my life along the way. And Larry, oh Larry, man, he had this thing in his eyes, the confidence. But see, that confidence didn't come from his human. It came from a belief system and a faith. And I wanted that. And I wanted that. Because I never had peace in my life up to that point. Now, I've been through some difficult things beyond that. And I've been able to walk through them with what I like to be considered grace, right? But God was there lifting me up the whole time, just pushing me down the path.
When you're talking with God, okay?
I hear God. People think
okay. I was just going to ask, do you ever hear him respond to you?
Well, listen, 100%. And I use the word hear because I don't know how else to vocalize that notion. And I'm going to give you two examples, both of extremes. One is, 10 years ago, gosh, it's a little bit longer than that now, maybe 12 years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 4B cancer. And it had spread, metastasized my whole body, and I was told I had 3 months left to live. And I have this daily ritual. I get up, I put on the coffee pot, and in the house I was living in at that time, I would go into the spare bedroom, I get on my knees and I pray. And I pray very simply. I ask God literally to reveal his will to me, make it very obvious, and make me man enough to carry it out, right? Make me do the things that I'm uncomfortable doing, in order to carry his will out. And then I ask him that people don't see me in those actions, that they see him, that his glory comes through, not Chris's ego. Those are my prayers. So I pray that, and I wait for God to tell me something to do. And this is like a Saturday night, boom, I got hit. It said, fast. And I'm like, fast? He said, fast, 21 days, just like Daniel. And I'm like, what? No, right? All right, whatever, God. And I'm thinking I'm nuts. So I get up and I go to my computer. And I was on this webpage, and you know how those ads pop up? Well, I accidentally clicked on this ad, and this ad took me to a study that talked about the correlation between what we consume and the feeding of the cancer cells in your body. And I read this thing half-heartedly, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, that's a coincidence. Mm-hmm. So that was Saturday. On Sunday, the next day, I wake up, same ritual. I go in and I pray the same prayer. I pray every day, and I take that moment of meditation, and I hear it again. Fast, 21 days. Daniel could do it, you can do it. I look at him and said, like, God, dude, I'm Italian. Bread, spaghetti, no, it ain't happening. I go to my computer, sit down, and the very first email is an email referencing a study done at Harvard, about a direct correlation between sugars and the growth of cancer cells and tumors in your body. And I'm like, dude, are you serious right now? And so on that Sunday and the next day, I researched about fasting, and I found out it's not dangerous to fast if you get the body fat to do it. Mm-hmm. It's dangerous to start eating afterwards. You have to be very careful about what you start eating after you fast, because if you put a whole lot of sugar in your body will spike insulin and you go into a diabetic coma. So I learned about all this, and I literally started fasting on that Monday, and I didn't eat for 21 days, nothing but water. And I've been doing that annually ever since then. God directed me on that path. Very clear. All right, so now let me take you to a story more current, and this is insane. So I have a business we've been trying to sell, and for one reason after another, the business is not sold. Debts by the people that were involved. Like literally, one investor was coming to the closing table the first round. He died 10 days before closing. He was responsible for $10 million of the transaction. He died, 42 years old, unexpected heart attack. Died, 2 kids. And so we gave the group some time to put it back together. It didn't work out. And we moved on to another group. This other group, we get the deal done. We're getting ready to sign. The day we're signing the contracts, one of the investors just ghosts us. He no-shows on the deal. And so, and this is a military guy. We're texting him nothing. So we all go home. and we get a text from late at night. My brother's really sick. He's in the hospital. We're good to go tomorrow. Just meet me. Everything's fine. We really meet up the next day. Guy doesn't show again. He gets with us later on in the afternoon. His brother dies. Didn't make it.
Yeah.
Didn't make it to the hospital. So God, 2 times, killed people to stop the sale of his business. We gave them some more time, and I'll never forget. It was a Friday afternoon, early morning, 11 o'clock, and the guy finally calls and says, "We can't make the deal happen. We can't close on this transaction." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, I'm all tweaked. I'm bent out of shape. Now, understand that this has been a very stressful transaction, one of the most stressful transactions I've done in a long, long time. So I literally get on my knees, because everything I do, before I do it, I get on my knees. I get on my knees and I say, "God, you told me to sell this business and it's not selling. What are you doing? What am I doing wrong here?" And I'm here to tell you, God laughed at me, Mark. God literally, and I felt the chuckle in my soul. And I'm like, "Dude, what are you talking about?" And he said to me, "You think you're a badass?" Excuse my language. You think you're a bad man? He says, "Watch what I can do." I get up out of prayer, and I literally, 30 minutes later, my partner in the business calls me and says, "You are not going to believe this." I'm like, "What?" I said, we've been trying to negotiate this contract for 2 years. And he's like, "You're not going to believe this." He said, "Contract just came in, executed. $2 million of net revenue to the bottom line of the business right then and there." So we were selling the business for $40 million. And so I dropped to my knees again and said, "God, you told me to sell the business. What are you doing?" And God literally spoke to me and said, "You think you can impact the world with $40 million? Watch what you're going to do with $200 million. $200 million. And I'm like, "What? Are you serious?" And I get up from prayer again, and I call my now partner, Nate, and I said, "Dude, this is the message I got." And he's like, "Yes." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Chris, we raise money for a living." He said, we're gonna capitalize this business, and we're gonna do it." We put the business up in capitalization, and literally we raised $14 million in 14 days. So that's 2 times that God's talked to me a whole bunch of times, but there's 2 extremes where God reached out and told me, "I'm the man in charge, and I ain't done yet."
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
That's probably why you and I have such a strong immediate connection.
Yeah.
And I don't know, we've talked about my journey, but I will tell you that when you go through these super dark moments, and I always get asked the question, would I ever change anything that I went through? And I had to think about it the first time somebody asked me after my release. And the answer is no.
You can't, right?
I wouldn't have changed it, because what it did was I was really good at making money, really good in the real estate space, which I am. And I've been able to do it very quickly again. But with a pure beacon of God guiding my life, praying every day. We pray 3 times a day. And, shutting down for Shabbat, and just letting life happen. And I think that is our connection.
100%.
And, everybody, there's all these different religions. There's only one God. There's one chairman of the board of the universe.
Amen.
And he runs the world. He runs the universe.
Amen.
And if you don't think that every little thing is created by him, and you think you have any bearing over it, then you have the biggest ego that you could have. And I remember when I got very wealthy and I became a real asshole.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fucked up my marriage. And, to this day, I still regret that. And having a relationship with God, it doesn't change. He's always there. He's always watching. He's always listening. He's always helping. And, when you say the first thing that's most important to you is your relationship with God, today we have a lot of pretty crazy, turbulent times going on. Okay, this craziness in New York, and if you think it's busy here now, it's only going to get busier.
Yep.
Okay, and this is whatever God wants to do. He's doing something because He has a longer term plan. So you just have to let it unfold. But if you would like to share the story of the gun not discharging,
Sure.
because that story put chills in my
Sure.
in my spine.
Absolutely. So at a point in my life, as a result of, not a fair statement, I didn't know how to deal with emotions because I was never taught. So I turned to drugs and alcohol. I spent a lot of time in my life trying to deal with the pain in my life by numbing it. And because I was never taught by the people that were supposed to raise me how to deal emotionally. So I obviously got involved with somebody like-minded, and she ended up pregnant. And the cool thing about my life at that point is I was able to stop drugs and alcohol, but I substituted work for the drugs and the alcohol. And I got involved with this woman. I ended up marrying her because I got her pregnant. And as a result, my son was born premature. He was born significantly premature. And but I had built a life for us. I bought a house cash. I had everything. So my son comes home, but he needed to be cared for. He needed a high level of care. He needed to be watched all the time. And it's a tough story to tell still, but like I said, I was working a lot, and I would work what was called split double this one day, which means I worked a little bit in the morning, got home for a while, and then came back at night. And on this one day, the anniversary is coming up in a couple of days, November 17th. I come home, and my wife and my son was supposed to be at home, and I walked into my house, and the house was just had this weird energy. It was so quiet. And I start calling off my wife, and she's not answering. And then I start calling out to my son, and he's 3 months old. I don't know what the heck I was thinking. And I go upstairs, and I go to the nursery, and I look in the bassinet. My son's there, and I go over to pick him up, and he's not moving, and he's cool. Not cold, but he's cool. And so I start performing CPR on him, and I go to take him to the hospital, and he died that day.
Sorry.
And this is before cell phones, so I call on the house phone.
You don't want to talk about it. You don't.
No, I'm here now.
You and I have had these conversations.
I'm here now. I'm calling the house. I can't get a hold of my wife. So I go home and I go knocking on my neighbor's door, and I ask the neighbor where my wife is, and he's like, yeah, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, dude, where is my wife? My son just passed away. And he's like, she's down there. And I'm like, down there? At JoJo's house? He's a drug dealer. We don't do drugs anymore. He goes, Chris, I can only tell you what I know. So I went inside, and I used to keep a 9mm in my bedside table. And I grabbed the gun, and I go down to the drug dealer's house, and I kick the door in, and I walk in, and I hear noises that I shouldn't be hearing from my wife without me being present. And so the house layouts are all the same. I go upstairs, and my wife's there with this man in bed having sex, and there's coke everywhere, and all this, and I lost my mind. And I literally went and threw her off him, and I put the gun in the guy's mouth, and I pulled the trigger. And the gun jammed. I stepped back, racked the second round from about 3 feet away. I pulled the trigger again, and the gun jammed again. I then took that pistol, and I beat that guy. I beat that guy within a half inch of his life. And when I was done beating him, I took the pistol and I I threw it at him because it was useless. And when I threw it at him, it hit the wall behind him, and it discharged and shot over my head. So in that moment, God intervened in my actions and saved my life and saved his life. And you can't convince me it's anything but God doing what God does by guiding our lives, whether we choose it or not. And he saved me that day. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, that's a pretty intense story.
It is.
You know,
but see, again, this is something that I can use to help other people. Because people suffer losses, and hopefully they never have to suffer loss of children. We're designed to lose our parents, right? But the pain is the same.
yeah, it's for me. Okay, this is just for me. The pain that I have gone through, the pain that I feel, the pain that I have lived with, is giving me strength.
Yes.
It's clarified
Sharpened.
so much. It's sharpened my mentality. And for most people who know me or don't know me from social media, I'm a real estate developer for 42 years, and had a very large firm, and then was indicted by the feds, and didn't take a deal. I said, I'm not guilty. I said, we own almost 15,000 units, and everything that we're doing is by the book. And when the time came to go to trial, I had been held in what's called MDC, which is the Metropolitan Detention Center, where rats and rodents, I mean, mice, they just crawl all over you. It's a horrible place. But they had put me in a lockdown portion where you're only out for an hour a day, and you're locked down for 23 hours, because they wanted to get me to say, well, it wasn't me, it was this guy, or it was that, or, you know. And they held me there for 43 months. After I'd been there for about 9 months, a rabbi from here, his name is Rabbi Katz, Mendy Katz, he came and brought me this book that I have on the shelf over here, The Garden of Emunah. And he brought me a new set of tefillin so I could pray, and a new prayer book, a Siddurim. And he would come visit me every 6 months. And during that period of time, these rabbis from all over the place would come and visit me, because I was not going to plead guilty. I was going to prove my innocence. And from that period, and there were days, there were weeks where, you know, you force yourself to get out of. You're in a box. You're in a box. There's no. You really can't sleep. There's no pillow. The pillow's in the mattress. You certainly can't kill yourself. So we can debunk that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself, because he didn't. Because the next place they sent me to was the same place that he was in, same floor. It's impossible. So why? Because I thought about it. And there was no way to do it. And then I realized, well, why would you be thinking this when you know the truth? But you have those dark moments.
Of course.
And those dark moments wasn't to prove anybody wrong, was to return to my children and to the people in my life that stood by me. And that's not being beaten, although you do have to fight, you have to survive. That's not going hungry, that's not being put in a box, that's not enduring the physical, psychological abuse that you went through. And I'm blessed, because I came from a really great mother and father, great family. But in those super dark moments, you see some glimmer, some tiny little thing. And I think it took me, once I had been sentenced and went to another facility so that I could breathe fresh air, it took me to a place where I started to see the daily miracles that God gave me. And for people who don't know the story, eventually the appellate court did rule in my favor, but the judge, who was duplicit in the case, would not resentence me to a fair sentence. So she resentenced me to 50 years versus 85, which is a life sentence for a guy that's 50. And that was the moment where the team said, okay, we're going to get you out of prison. We're going to get you a pardon. And it was insane. But the insanity was, 5 years prior to that, I packed up the legal material that I needed to take with me and my religious books, and I put it under my bed. And, you're in a prison with, well, my cellmate was a murderer. His name was Greg Marshinsky. You can look him up. I called him the green-eyed monster on the New York Times front page, and he chopped his victim up. The guy's name was Paul Gale. And he was my cellmate for 9 years. So think about it. That's the best possible cellmate I could have, was a murderer. Smart guy. He was like a MacGyver. I would say, Greg, can we make this? And we would find a way to make something and, use it. And he's serving 2 life sentences. And I know he's repentant, but I know he still suffers from the issues that he has. And he was abused. He was an abused child. His grandfather, Polish grandfather, he was a longshoreman, and he used to beat him senseless. So, everybody has some form of a story. Everybody has some form of, I'll call it a comeback. But yours, to me, just gives me, in Hebrew we call chizik, so much strength. And what I don't think people understand about what you and Nate do is you're changing people's lives.
Let me talk about that.
And that's something that I've kind of fell into, because that's what gave me hope. That's what helped me to garner, respect in prison.
So let me talk about that. You talked about something that really touched on me, about the darkness, and you saw that glimmer of light. I have a home up in the mountains in North Carolina. And when you're up in the mountains in North Carolina, it's extremely dark at night, so that you can see the stars that you can't see when there's other light around, right? So that's the symbolism of, in the darkest times, we start to recognize, you talk about, I saw that hope, and then I started appreciating everything and every little day. It brings us to a point of gratitude. I have found that gratitude is my drug of choice today. That's where I get my fulfillment from. It's not the money, it's not anything else. It's the gratitude. And had I not had the experiences of feeling as though God didn't love me or didn't care about me, and all the pain that I suffered, at this point in my life, I could possibly be just another FRG, another freaking rich guy, right? With no purpose, only pursuing money. What I've found in those pursuits, that they end, they're shallow, and they're unfulfilling. But because of the path that I've been on, I found, even when things were trying to do the right thing, I haven't been always had a bunch of zeros in my checking account. But what I found is that if I'm pursuing the positive changes, or I believe in more, and that's the motto of my company, believe in more. And the more is not money. The more is about affecting the world. I have found that if I do that, if I pursue God's will for my life, and I look to affect the world in a positive place, money is just the vehicle I do it with. And then God allows me some indulgences that are absolutely incredible. Like, I have an incredible life. But every dime, every dollar, every penny in my checking account belongs to God. And if I have that mentality, then if I'm only working harder to do what he wants me to do, I walk around fulfilled. So all of that dark stuff is all just blessings that allow me to perpetuate what I believe is God's will in this world. Listen, we have ministries that feed kids. We just did an event where we take kids out fishing. We call it Fishers of Men, where these kids are involved in the criminal justice system. They don't have a dad in their household. Nobody to love them. Nobody talking about God, right? We do these things in our apartment complexes where we have this program called Toys for Tenants. We literally buy toys for anybody under 16 years old in our facilities. You know, and one story around that is this. You know, we have a place in Lexington, Kentucky, C-class asset in a B-class neighborhood. And, you know, these people, they live paycheck to paycheck. And so last year it was, I think, it was last Christmas, we have our property manager calling, asking about the ages of the children in the facility. And she gets to one woman and the woman's like, well, why are you asking? And the property manager says, well, we buy toys or Christmas gifts for the kids that are in the facility. And the ladies just get quiet. Property manager says, are you there? Are you okay? And the lady's crying. And she says, you don't understand. The property manager says, what do you mean we don't understand? She goes, I have $13 in my checking account. I lost my job 3 weeks ago. My kids are not going to have I don't even know how I'm going to put food on the table this week. So that kind of thing is an absolute blessing because we're able to not only give them a Christmas, but to put her in touch with people that could help her with food, that could help with some social services. Now, what I didn't share is, there was a time in my life where I was stealing to use drugs and alcohol. And God took that wretch, that man that was doing those things, and put him in a position to affect people's lives in that way and watch it happen. That is fulfilling. I don't care how much money I have in my checking account. I know that God used me to make that miracle happen, and to witness that is an absolute blessing. So all of that darkness that we've been through, I think it's necessary because I think that me as a human man and knowing the dark side of me as a human, my ego would be like, look how great Chris is and look at all the stuff that Chris has. But today, it's really literally about what can God do through me on a daily basis. And that is the story that I like telling.
Well, it's a remarkable story.
Amen.
It's not something for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
Okay? But sometimes the severity of things helps bring you to a completely different path and a different light. And, we're going into, I think this is just my personal opinion. You might agree, you might disagree. Nate might agree or disagree. Tanner, who knows a lot about real estate. I think that we're seeing the greatest correction that we're ever going to see right now because of the banks, because of what, and I'm not an Obama fan, but the best thing that he ever did was rescue the banks.
Yeah.
He forced the Fed to rescue the banks. He forced the government. If he hadn't, I'm not sure what the banking industry would look like today. Okay, it could have been exactly the same thing, but I don't think it would be the same thing. But because he changed that law when they wrote Dodd-Frank, and now banks don't mark their asset to market, and they can just roll it over on their balance sheet, we probably have $3 to $4 trillion in toxic loans on these banks' books.
Yes.
And as what you do and as what we do, we have a very synergistic similarity. And we've got several deals we're in the process of closing by year end, and those are all distressed, fucked up deals.
Yeah.
And it's only going to get worse.
Significantly worse. If I could lay a prediction out there for you, see, there's a lot of operators that got into this business when interest rates were 2% and 3%.
Sure.
Anybody can make money at 2% or 3%.
Yep.
But when things start changing and those loans, those variable rate loans or those adjustable loans have come due, and now they're operating at 6 or 7%, all of a sudden you can't be a sloppy operator. You have to make sure and know what you're doing. You have to understand about tenant retention. You have to understand about where it's wise to invest your capital, where it's not wise to invest your capital, to operate these assets at a pristine level in order to continue to be successful. So we're seeing a lot of fallout as a result of that. These guys are running. And here's what happens is once you get in deep enough with the banks, with these guys that look like they were successful, you get to be you bought $100 million from a bank, you are not their customer anymore. They're in it with you. You are their freaking partner. So they don't want to put these assets on the book.
I love that. I love that. Yeah.
They don't want to put these assets on the book. So there's a lot of BS going on, special asset type classes, and the banks are propping these things up to not get them as defunct loans on their books. These are assets that we can do. Second thing that's going to hugely impact this industry over the next 18 months. Bye Section 8. When Section 8 housing is gone, what's going to happen? There's no more living off the government teat for both landlords and operators, and there's no more living off the government teat by the people that take advantage of the system. You're going to see a decrease in that. Now you really have to know how to operate a property and really have to know about tenant retention and what needs to happen to keep these people and keep your property successful. Loans are going bad. I'm here to scoop them up. If you know of one, give me a call. I'm ready to take it. Mark's ready to take 3. We're ready to go because that's my crystal ball for the next 8. We'll take all. I'll make it work. Trust me. You bring me a deal if it's viable, I will make it work.
I know you will.
Yeah.
I know you will. That's a pretty amazing prediction, and it's exactly the way I feel.
Yeah.
And we're not the only people.
No.
I think Nate probably feels the same way.
Yeah, he's on board with us. He's definitely on board with us.
But it's the guys that have been around and been through the different cycles. And, the funniest thing is one of the deals we bought, I want to say we bought it in February. It was from the old Silicon Valley Bank.
Okay.
And that was the bank was sold to First Citizens here in the state of Florida. And they peeled off their first asset. And the original capital stack on the deal was 19.8. We paid 8.2 for it.
Wow.
We were paying 7.2 for it. And when they came back and they had agreed and signed a contract with us for a cash purchase, they came back to us and said, we can't sell you the property. And we said, why? Because the way they took the assets over, the way the FDIC insured the loans is we had to assume the $8.2 million loan. So what we did was we structured $1 million debt forgiveness with them, and they gave us the loan. It's a 60 months left on it, or 61, 519 IO, which you don't know what that means. It means interest only, and non-recourse.
Nice.
So that we paid somewhere south of 50 cents on the dollar.
Wow.
And all we did was put up reserve dollars and a rehab budget. And I will say that the turnaround is a little slower than I had anticipated. It's right near the airport, George Bush. So it's been a little bit slower. It's kind of in one of those wonky submarkets, and we felt that if we did this deal, they would open up their books to us. They haven't yet.
Yeah.
So we're kind of waiting.
Yeah.
So,
sometimes you got to take it on the chin a little bit to build that relationship.
Yeah. We've had offers in the north of 11.5, 12 for the asset already, but I think the asset's worth stabilized about 15.
Nice.
Real value. But just like all these deals where people used bridge debt, they were great at raising money. They are terrible operators. When money was here, they could borrow this much. Now when money came up to here, they can borrow this much. And they don't have the reserves to pay that down.
Correct.
And what happens? They've got to sell.
Yeah.
And these are multiple distressed deals, and they're all over the place. Now, I don't want to say their name on camera, but I'll tell you after a deal that we're buying the pref piece on a deal, and I know they just took back all of a large company's assets, and we're doing this deal under the same preface that we do one deal, and I've already spoken with the CEO, who is the major shareholder in the company, and he will give us the right to walk in and pick and build a portfolio.
Nice.
And as you know, okay, if you're buying a couple $100 million worth of deals, it's a lot easier to get it financed than buying a $200,000 property.
Yeah. My bank doesn't even want to talk to me if it's not a $15 million plus loan. They won't even, they're like, come on, you're playing bigger than that. Don't even go there. Go borrow 40, 50 million at a time. We're with you. Yeah.
So how is the mentoring going?
Awesome. We have two. I'm involved in two different types of mentoring: professional mentoring and personal mentoring. I help guys that are reacclimating themselves to the world. I counsel and mentor those guys. But we also have an academy type program where we teach people how to do what we do, how to build wealth, how to avoid taxes. That's the biggest thing for me is I hate paying taxes to a government that builds bridges to nowhere. And the other reason that we do it is because me personally, I'm involved with multifamily real estate because I don't want to pay taxes. I'd rather put that dollar in a kid's mouth. So we teach people how to do that stuff, and that's where I get my joy, right? I get my joy in teaching people and educating people, and yeah, that's a beautiful thing. I do a lot of, like I said, the personal mentoring is what's most fulfilling for me, and I have this program called Mindset Monday where I literally just talk about life. And how to deal with life, how to take the struggles from your past and use them as assets. And if you want to jump on that, it's just something we do every Monday. You mind if I?
Everything. Lay it all
www.chrislavin.com. You can join my Mindset Monday program. There's no charge. You just come and share your experience as we share our experience on how to deal with life on a daily basis, even when it throws curveballs at you.
Tell them also where to find you on social media. Where
Sure.
to find your
We have a
real estate mentoring program.
Okay, we have a real estate mentoring program called Home Invest, and we're at www.homeinvestacademy.com. You can find me at YouTube, either through Home Invest Group or my handle on a lot of social media is RC Jet Pilot because I love to fly. I fly remote control jets, and I'm a pilot as well. So RC Jet Pilot, Chris Lavin, Home Invest Group, homeinvest.com, and homeinvestacademy.com. That's where you find me.
I hope I wasn't too evasive.
No.
Too what's the word? Invasive.
No, dude, I have the ability to say no.
Yes. Yeah. And I know you're open book.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know the fact that you feel if somebody hears one thing from
Saves
you,
a life today.
it's going to make a difference. Okay. And one of the most unique things that everybody in this room has is making a difference in someone's life.
Yes.
You know it pays it forward. You
100%.
know it helps another person.
That
it
ripple
makes
effect.
Blessings.
Yes.
It creates blessings.
Correct.
So, number one, I want to thank Chris for being so transparent. I'm learning how to be better at being transparent. And I'm learning it from guys like Chris. And you'll see this podcast. I'm not sure when we'll get it aired, but we'll get it chopped up. And guys, if you don't know anything about real estate and you want to learn about real estate, Chris, Nate will take you and turn your life around, because nothing will turn your life around like owning a piece of real estate.
Amen.
Let's go.
God bless. Thank you.